Hello everyone, my name is Brittany Swiger, and my teammates Taylor, Madison, and myself are going to present to you the Life Values Inventory Assessment, which we have done some research on and really found the basics of how values really affect certain decisions that we make in our life and certain views that we have on the world in particular. Values are very individualized to each person, and that's kind of what this assessment looks to target, is how each person's view of the world and those lenses called values that we view the world through, how exactly they influence our decisions and our attitudes and beliefs. We begin by laying the basis for the theoretical framework and overall development of the Life Values Inventory. In our research, we discovered that the Life Value Inventory, or the LVI, as it may be referred to in this presentation, was originally developed off of Milton Rokeach's theory of values in his book that he wrote, and his own assessment guide that he created, the Rokeach Value Survey, as well as Super's theory in relation. And Milton's aspects of his theory come to life in the theoretical framework of this assessment, because he believed that our beliefs, values, attitudes, everything influenced our daily lives, and that it influenced those decisions that we make on a daily basis, and how we view the world. Super's influence was heavy in developing a sense of self and realizing that we change over time, and that we are not the same person that we are, for example, in the beginning of our career or the end, or when we're changing careers. That change is inevitable. So, like I said before, this assessment kind of takes values and puts them into our worldview perspective and how we may make those changes and those decisions. Also, by Carl Rogers, would play a huge role in facilitation of this given exam and who may administer it if one administrator is particularly influenced by PCT. This theory allows for therapists and counselors to really focus on what is it that makes that person do what they do. That's kind of the basis of PCT. And exploring what values that person may have would greatly influence that realization that the client or patient may have as to why it is that they do what they do. Now, to get into a little bit more of the specifics of this particular assessment, in this assessment, basically 14 major life values are going to be assessed, and they are asked in each question. There are 42 questions or statements on the assessment itself, and the statements that correspond to each major life value are spread out throughout the assessment itself, and then are later grouped together and identified as corresponding with that major life value at the end, after the test taker has already completed the assessment. But those 14 major life values include achievement, belonging, concern for the environment, concern for others, creativity, financial prosperity, health and activity, humility, independence, loyalty to family or group, privacy, responsibility, scientific understanding, and spirituality. And as we were kind of going through this as a group, as a team, we were looking at these and realizing that some of them kind of make sense to be grouped together, and some of them we would not necessarily expect to find grouped together. And we thought about that in terms of the counseling session, and we realized that those are great questions to look into For example, if somebody has financial prosperity and concern for the environment listed as two of their top values following this assessment, how exactly do they feel about some of the issues that they might find in achieving one or the other of those goals in today's society? And those are kinds of things that we looked into, and that's a great example of how these major life values can be used in the counseling session, but also to find out what drives each client. To actually administer this test and to take this test, we looked in relation to what population first would be a good target or a good example of a population to give this assessment to be beneficial to their counseling. And we were looking, and we first obviously thought from the career counseling perspective, as that's what our team is grouped together for in this course. And we realized that career counseling especially would be great for this. Values can identify what really matters to us in careers, not just in our lives. As we spend most of our adult lives in our careers, it makes sense to see what we value and what we can relate those values to as far as values that will match in careers that our clients will pick or maybe not even think of before. We also looked at other populations in general, any type of student affairs, any type of school counseling, any type of we even talked a little bit about addiction, alcoholism. Truly, this can be something that if anybody is trying to make a decision, or if someone is trying to figure out what the right path is for them, or to kind of choose between two sides of themselves, kind of torn between making a path for themselves, then this assessment would be a great starting point and a great thing to refer back to in your counseling when perhaps they start defaulting back to their old ways or whatever that may be for that particular client. And truthfully, we could not find anything about exactly the credentials needed to administer this particular assessment. We even found the assessment plain as day, easily available online, so really anybody could go and find it and take it themselves if they really wanted to. It did not cost anything either. So that is also something to consider as far as what kind of counseling each counselor may be involved in, what their time limit is, that sort of thing. But it's definitely something to take into consideration. Now we will go ahead and dive into how exactly the test is performed and its methodology, as well as how the scores are interpreted and how we as counselors can use that in the long run with our clients. But basically, the way that it works is the values that we identified earlier, those 14 values, are rated on a scale and ranked in order of importance based on what the tallied total numbers for each statement listed in the assessment, how those turn out. So basically, each statement on the assessment has a rank of 1 to 5, 1 being that statement almost never guides my behavior, and 5 being that this corresponds with something that almost always guides my behavior. So if you answer closer to the 5 and you have a higher number, and those are tallied up at the end for that specific value. So like I said before, each question or statement is related to one of the 14 values, and you don't know which one until at the end. Each statement is then related back to one of the values and tallied up. So if you, say, for example, got a 5, 4, and a 3 on questions, I don't know, 12, 1, and 15, then maybe that relates back to value of financial prosperity, and you got a relatively high score on that. Well, then after all the questions are clustered together and you find out what your total points are for each value, then you look at all the values as one and see which values had the highest numbers associated with, or the highest point values associated with that value. And the top 3 are usually the ones that we would say are the ones that guide the client's behavior the most. So then that kind of opens the door to talk about, okay, well, which ones did you value the least? Which ones got the lowest scores on the totem pole? And that kind of opens the door for, okay, so what matters most to this client are values X, Y, and Z, and what matters least, according to this assessment, are matters, A, B, C. So that kind of provides a direction of conversation for the counselor to open up and say, well, do you think that these answers accurately represent how you feel? And if not, or if so, how and why? So next we're going to have a little role play demonstration by my teammates Taylor and Madison. And they are going to show you an example of a counselor meeting back up with her client and going over the results of taking the life values inventory in the previous session, and how she interprets those scores and what questions she asks.
Hey Taylor, how are you today?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you for asking. So just to summarize some of our previous sessions, you came in seeking career counseling.
Right.
We've discussed an interest in changing your major, possibly from psychology to biology or nursing.
Yes.
Okay. So our last session, we took the life values inventory, and this session we're just going to review those results. So can you tell me a little bit about what it was like taking this inventory?
For me, it felt like some of the questions were the same.
Okay.
But just, I guess, worded differently.
Okay.
Maybe.
Okay.
So
a little redundant.
A little redundant, but not bad to take, I guess.
Okay. Okay, well that's good. Just to kind of go over what it was 42 statements, and you then described how often the belief guides your behaviors, correct?
Right.
Okay. So we combined the ratings of those 42 statements and added up the total scores on this page.
Okay.
And these total scores represent one of the 14 major life values that is on this inventory.
Okay.
So before I actually tell you what your scores are, based on these 14 values, which 3 would you think are your top 3 values?
I would say definitely health and activity.
Okay.
Spirituality.
Okay.
And either achievement or concern for others, maybe. I'm not sure between those two.
Okay. All right, so then just turning over here, looking at your scores. Actually, your top scores were achievement, achievement, health and activity, and spirituality.
Okay.
Okay. So my next question would be, do you feel as though those results are accurate?
Definitely, then, yeah.
Okay. All right. That's great. So piecing all of this together, do you feel as though these values, your top values, achievement, health and activity, and spirituality, do you feel as though those values more align with professions in the psychology field or a possible major biology or nursing major?
I would have to say that I think between the three of them, that it could go in either profession.
Okay.
Like, I think maybe more of the health and activity would help me more alongside the mental aspect of psychology.
Right.
And then achievement is good because I've heard like the biology program and the nursing programs are like really intensive.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that would help my drive, I guess.
Okay.
And then spirituality is just having faith that I'm doing the right thing.
Right. Right.
So.
And I also looking at your results, you really didn't have too low of numbers, but your lowest score was scientific understanding.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So, does that surprise you at all?
That surprises me a little bit, but I don't know. I guess when the questionnaire was really weird, like I like logic,
Mm-hmm.
but logic doesn't guide my behavior. So the questions were kind of like, "Oh, do you care about knowing this?" And no, I don't really care. Like it doesn't really guide my behavior, but I do like facts.
Okay. Okay,
So,
that's understandable. Okay.
but
So, do you think that this activity helped at all in your decision to change majors? Are you still leaning toward one or the other after taking this inventory?
I think the inventory was really good. And definitely like seeing what you think your values are going to be compared to what they are.
Mm-hmm.
I would say it was beneficial for me.
Okay, great. Well, hopefully these results are something that you can use in the future to make other decisions if needed.
Okay.